The purpose of this video is to provide a little guidance for you guys so that you can better understand assignment number 2 on the sale of business property. So what we really have here is a problem that goes through the acquisition of property, the recovery of part of the cost of that property through depreciation, and then ultimately the disposal of some of those pieces of property. So your assignment is going to be very similar to this one, so I think this should help you quite a bit to get through it. But make sure you set enough time aside to work your way through, because it's not that easy and it does take some time. Okay, so I have posted a copy of this case in front of you. I'm not going to read it. You should consider doing so before you even watch this video. It really isn't that long. But you can see we have the acquisition of some property in both 2016 and then again in 2017. And then ultimately it looks like in July of 2018 we sell that property for a certain amount. And what we're trying to do is determine what is the cost recovery associated with a couple of these items, and then ultimately what is the realized and recognized gain or loss on the sale of those properties. And I've provided some tables for you in your cases, and what I'm going to do is work through the support that would help you complete those tables for your case, for your assignment, because they're all a little bit different. Okay, so I'm looking at this acquisition of property, and I know that the first thing I need to do if I have either the disposal or I'm being asked for the adjusted basis is to calculate cost recovery. So this is all business equipment, furniture, machines, a building. It was all used in a trade or business, and so I need to depreciate that. So I'm going to do that in Excel. And the first thing I'm going to do is look at each year separately. So what I've done is I've taken the same information and pasted it into Excel, and now I can do a depreciation schedule based on some of that information, right? So what are the steps I'm going to follow? First, I'm going to depreciate the assets. Then I'm going to sell them, right, for which I need adjusted basis and amount realized. And then lastly, I'm going to apply those character rules that we've learned under capital gains, ordinary gains, 1231, and then depreciation recapture under 1245, 1250, and 291. Okay, so since depreciation is done on an annual basis and determinations are made annually, we're going to start with only 2016. Okay, so part of the rules for 2016 in the case are that in 2016, they did not elect any 179 or bonus. So at least for 2016, it is just a straightforward calculation of depreciation. So I'm going to skip all those columns, and I'm going to go straight to maker's depreciation for these two assets. Okay, so as you know from watching the videos, the easiest way to do depreciation is go find the tables. So we need to find the right tables, and in order to find the right table, since this is both pieces of personal property, not real property, we need to determine whether it is half year or mid-quarter. Well, mid-quarter is triggered if anything is sold in the fourth quarter of the year, or placed in service, I should say, in the fourth quarter of the year. Nothing in 2016 is placed in service in the fourth quarter. So that tells me we're going to use the half-year convention for all of the 2016 assets until we're done with them. Okay, so I've got to do 2016, 2017, and 2018 depreciation. Let's, of course, start with 2016. That's the first year. Where would I go? Of course, I would go to my table pack, right? So I can see that first year for 5 property is 20%. First year for 7-year property is 14.29%. So I just need to take those amounts back, put them into my schedule. So this is 7-year property, my depreciation factor, 14.29% and 0.2%. Now I can calculate depreciation. Voila. 2016 is done and done. Okay, so now I can move on to 2017. Of course, 2017 is year 2, so we need to go back to our table pack, look at year 2, 32% and 24.49%. Plug those in, make sure we calculate by the basis, not what is last year's depreciation or any other amount. And boom, we've got 2017's depreciation. Okay, now we just need to worry about 2018. But recall from our case that something happened to some of these assets in 2018. So for example, of the two items, furniture and equipment, that were purchased in 2016, the equipment was sold in 2018. So we know that that makes a difference in the way we're going to calculate depreciation for those assets. Okay, here, let's shrink this down a little bit. I like it nice and big, but we need to be able to see what's going on. So we did not sell the furniture. So as a result, that's straightforward. We just need to go get these depreciation factors for a third year. So it's 19.2 and 17.49. So we can go back and say, all right, it's 0.192, 0.1749. But remember, that represents depreciation for the full year. And the reality is we sold this equipment in 2018. So we don't get a full year's depreciation because we used the half-year convention when we placed it in service. We need to use the half-year convention when we take it out of service. So we multiply that by a half. Make sure we put it in as a formula, and we get the true depreciation factor for the year. Now it is simply some math. Okay, now we can calculate total cost recovery because that's simply 2016 depreciation plus 2017 plus 2018. And I can do that for both of those assets, no problem. And now I can also calculate the adjusted basis. That's simply the original cost minus my cost recovery. Cool. So we just took care of all the 2016 assets just like that. Okay, now we got to turn our attention to 2017. Okay, let's go back and take a look at the case because 2017 might get a little more important. So in 2017, Zelda took as much 179 as allowable on the longest lived asset eligible and do not elect out of bonus depreciation. So the implication is that they are electing to use bonus depreciation. Okay, and then of course we have the sale of the machine in the office building before we're done, but we'll deal with that when we get to 2018. Okay, so let's start with section 179. So we said we were going to take section 179 on the largest asset that was eligible for it. So we've got the machine, we've got the auto. It's pretty clear that the machine is worth more. So we need to do our calculation of 179 limits. Okay, so first we would say, what is the total amount of eligible property placed in service? Well, that's the machine and the auto. Because recall that the building is not eligible for 179, and therefore it's not section 179 eligible property. So the next question would be, does that exceed the 2017 limit, which I believe is $2,030,000. So clearly it does not. Sorry. Yeah, $2,030,000. Pretty sure that's it. So clearly that does not exceed that amount. So as a result, we can take as much Section 179 in 2017 as is available that year. The annual limit for 2017 is $510,000. So now we know the basis that is available for bonus. Okay. So we can take bonus depreciation at 15% on things that were placed in service before September 28th. Both of these were placed in service before September 28th. The bonus percentage was 50%, so we'll take that basis and multiply it by 1/2. Now we get the basis for makers as what is left over. So recall, you cannot use bonus depreciation on real property, especially something like an office building. So as a result, bonus is 0 for the office building, and we're going to have to makers depreciate all $2 million of that. Okay, so hopefully this is making sense so far. Let's go back through it really quickly, right? So for Section 179, we determined that they were eligible to take the full amount for 2017. That's $510,000. So there's no income limitation. The case actually says that. I kind of brushed over it. Their income is in the tens of millions each year. So the income limitation is not going to come into play. The small business limitation also doesn't come into play because the eligible property is much less than the $2,030,000 limit for 2017. So that left us with a basis for bonus. Bonus in 2017 was 50% for assets placed in service before September 28th, which both of these were. So now we have our basis for makers, and we can start for all three of our 2017 assets. Okay, so now that we're here, we need to do the same sort of measure, right? So first we'd say, okay, I've got some personal property. Was any of it placed in service in the fourth quarter? The answer is no, so it's clearly less than 40%. So as a result, we are going to use, of course, the half-year convention. So if we go to the table, we've got the same 5 and 7 year amounts, 0.2% and 0.1429%. So we can go in and plug these in. And we can do the math, just like we did here. I think our formulas will work, won't they? Let's confirm. Sure does. Okay. So we've got $10,000 for the machine and $2,000 for the auto. But remember, autos are subject to a limitation. And in 2017, that limitation, if you elect to use bonus depreciation, is $11,160. We currently have $12,000. So $10,000 for bonus, another $2,000 for regular depreciation. That puts us over the limit. As a result, we have to bring that back down. I got one too many ones in there. There we go. So that our total, just to make sure, is the annual limit amount. There we go. So we can confirm that by looking in our table pack. We'll scroll down, 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 looking for 2017. Sorry, there it is. 2017, first year depreciation when bonus is applied. There it is, $11,160. Of course, when there is no bonus, that's only $3,160. Okay, let's get back into our depreciation tables here for a sec. All right, so we've dealt with the auto now for 2017. Let's deal with our building. So our building was placed in service in December. So we need to go find the right table. So it's an office building that's non-residential. So let's go find the non-residential table. That's the residential table. Here it is, the non-residential real property table for items placed in service in December. And you can see that the depreciation factor is 0.107%. Okay, let's go back and put in our depreciation factor. Now remember, 0.107% is 0.00107. That's a mistake that students often make. But now I can calculate the depreciation for 2017. Whoops, hard-coded that in for the building. There we go. Okay, so now I need to move on to 2018. Okay, I have a similar problem. Recall that I sold some of these properties. I sold the machine and the office building partway through the year, which means they're not going to get the full year's depreciation. But in any event, we can go get the full year's depreciation rates because we need them. So year 2, December, 2.564. And for 5 and 7, the same 32 and 0.2449. Okay, so now we can plug these amounts in, 0.2449, 0.32, 0.02564. There we go. So that's a full year. However, recall that I sold, first off, I sold this, it's the machine. So the machine doesn't get a full year's depreciation. Again, we used the half-year convention when we placed it into service. We need to use the half-year convention when we take it out of service. Boom, there we go. So the auto, we get a full year's depreciation for. We did not sell it. But let's go ahead and do this math for these two for a second. And note that depreciation in year 2 is $3,200. Let's make sure that isn't more than the limit for the amount we're eligible to take. In year 2, it's $5,100. As a result, we do not go past the limit. We will take all $3,200 of depreciation. Now the building we did sell, so we have the full year amount, but recall we don't get a full year's depreciation. We need to apply the same convention we used when we placed it in service. So the question is, what convention did we use when we placed it in service? Well, we use mid-month because all real property uses mid-month. So the next question is, well, when did we take it out of service? Because we need to apply the same mid-month convention. We took it out in July. Okay, so if we took it out of service in July, then we'd get a full month for January, February, March, April, and June. So that's 6. We get half a month for July, divided by 12. There is our prorated depreciation factor. Okay, so let's make sure we understand that one more time. We'll make it super obvious. January, February, March, April, May, June, whoops. May, June, July, and then the rest of the year. I get a full month, full month, full month, full month, full month, full month. However, I took it out of service in July. That's half a month. That's 6.5 out of 12 months. Okay, just to be perfectly clear. All right, so that helps us with that. Now we can do the math. And we get depreciation for 2018 for oh, look what I did. See, just looking at it, I'm like, oh, that depreciation looks too high. That's because it is, right? 2.564% is 0.026564%. There we go. That makes more sense to me. Now we can calculate total cost recovery, but our formula from above isn't going to work. Total cost recovery for the machine is the 510 plus the bonus plus 2017 plus 2018. Now that I can copy down. Okay, so I've calculated total cost recovery in the adjusted, well, hold on, gotta calculate the adjusted basis. And the adjusted basis at the time of the sale for 3 of the assets. So since I didn't sell this asset, I'll just get rid of the adjusted basis because it's not relevant. Same with that one. I didn't sell the auto, so the adjusted basis isn't relevant. Okay, so now I have depreciated all 5 of these assets over their useful life, right? And I have their adjusted basis ready. So I've done step 1. Now I need to move on to step 2. So I need the adjusted basis and the amount realized, right? We know we need to learn it, live it, love it, know it. Sorry, I had to take a little break for a drink there. I'm losing my voice. Okay, so let's calculate gain and loss for the 3 pieces of equipment that we sold, right? So step 1 is I need the amount realized. So I can go back to the case. Whoops. I can go back to the case and look, what did I sell each of these for? So the equipment was 15, the machine 704. The office building 2110. Okay, I can handle that. So the equipment is 15. The machine is 704. And this is 2110. There we go. Okay, now I just need to pull in the adjusted basis. Well, conveniently, I calculated that on the last page. The adjusted basis of the equipment, 9,600. The adjusted basis of the machine, 51,426, and the adjusted basis of the office building, whoops, 1970083. There we go. Okay, so you can see that I've already plugged in case you're wondering, how to calculate the realized gain or loss. So it looks like we're all set there. So let's go back and look at our steps for a second. All right, so sell it. Adjusted basis amount realized. I got my realized and recognized gains or losses. Now I simply need to determine what is their character. What is the character of each of these realized and recognized gains or losses? Okay, so let's go through each one individually. Okay, so I have equipment owned by a corporation used in a business. Is that a capital asset? The answer is no. Is it a 1231 asset? Well, did I hold it for more than a year? Let's go back and take a peek. Let's see, I bought it in 2016, 16. I sold it in 2018. I almost certainly held that for more than a year. That is a 1231 asset. Is it a 1245 asset? Well, yes, it is, because it's personal property, which means by default it cannot be a 1250 asset. Okay, so now I've identified this as a 1245 asset, and I know that I would need to recapture any of this gain as ordinary to the extent of the depreciation taken. So how much depreciation did I take on the equipment? In total, I took depreciation of $15,400. That means I would need to recapture all of this gain as ordinary. As a result, the character of that gain is completely ordinary. Okay, let's move on to the machine. All right, is the machine a capital asset? We know the answer is no. Is it a 1231 asset? Well, let's see. We bought it in July of 17. We sold it July 22nd. So 1 day, but we did achieve long-term holding period. So as a result, sure enough, that is a 1231 asset. Is it a 1245 asset? You better believe it. It's personal property, which means that it can't be a 1250 asset because that's only real property. Okay, so we need to recapture the depreciation we need to recapture the gain as ordinary to the extent of the depreciation taken. How much depreciation did we take? So look, our gain is 652. Our depreciation is 598. That's less. So let's recapture all of the depreciation on the sale of that machine. Okay, that means that the rest of it must be 1231 gain or loss. Could we have determined that was the case? Maybe so, because we know that we sold it 704 for more than its original cost. 650. By how much? Let's see, 704 minus 650, that sounds like 54,000, and sure enough, that's our 1231 capital gain. Okay, now we have an office building we need to deal with. Okay, so I have, is that a capital asset? No way. We've confirmed that. Is it a 1231 asset? Let's go take a peek. See, it was purchased in December of 2017. It was sold in July of 2018. Uh-oh. Well, it looks to me like that is not a 1231 asset. If it's not a 1231 asset, it's neither of those as well, which means that is simply an ordinary asset and therefore generates only an ordinary gain. So as a result, do we apply a 291 reclass to this? Absolutely not. So there's no 291 to apply to that. If it had been held long term, then we would apply 291 to this situation. We would determine what is the amount of depreciation recapture we would have had if it were a 1245. We'd multiply that by 20%, and then the rest of it would spill over into 1231 capital gain, but that is simply not the case. Okay, are we done? Let's see. Taxable income, tens of millions. It looks like we are all set. The only other thing that might affect it, right? So we talked about 291 perhaps affecting it. There's a possibility that if our taxpayer had been not a corporation, but an individual, then we might have to deal with the unrecaptured 1250 at 25%. But in this situation, we do not. The other thing that could happen is there could be prior year 1231 losses. So under the 1231 look back rule, we might have had to look back and try to recharacterize some of this gain or loss as something different. But in this particular example, that is not the case. Now, as you know, as I've said in the videos, one of the important issues related to all these character reclassifications is they never change the amount. So as a double check, I want to make sure that I have not changed the amount of the gain, and I have not. They match up. Okay, so hopefully this video will help you get through your assignment number 2. That's what it's intended to do. Best of luck. It's a tough one, so take your best shot at it.